Hello, welcome to a presentation on how to apply for grants with Alberta Student Aid. This is presented by MyLearningCoach. MyLearningCoach is a third-party service provider that supports post-secondary students across Canada to obtain full access to their learning. Please note, although MyLearningCoach is an approved service provider with Alberta Student Aid, we do not work for Alberta Student Aid. We have, however, supported many students to access grant funding. The information presented in this presentation is information gathered from the Student Aid website and from our experience supporting students to access grant funding. This presentation offers general information about how to apply for grants and grants only, and focuses on full-time Alberta residents attending post-secondary programs in Canada. In order to apply for grants through Alberta Student Aid, you will need to complete a full-time funding application. The full-time funding application is actually 3 applications in one. On this application, you will apply for an Alberta student loan, a Canada student loan, and grant funding. In essence, you must apply as if you wish to access a student loan, and through that application, you will automatically be considered for the grants you are eligible for. There is no separate application to apply for grant funding only. By submitting a student loan application, you are also submitting an application for grant funding. We will break this down for you in more detail as we progress through this presentation. What is grant funding? Grant funding is essentially free money that can help cover your educational costs. Grant funding does not need to be repaid as long as you remain a full-time student for the funding period for which you access the grant funding. For example, if you receive grant funding for a September to April funding or study period, then you will need to remain enrolled in full-time studies during that time. If you withdraw from your studies during this time, then you will be likely required to repay the grant funding to Alberta Student Aid. Who's eligible to receive full-time grants? Grants are for students with special circumstances, including but not limited to students with lower incomes or students with disabilities. If you wish to access the disability grant, you must be a person with a permanent, persistent, or prolonged disability as defined by the Canadian Student Financial Assistance Program and provide acceptable documentation to Alberta Student Aid. You are automatically considered for grants based on the information you provide on your application. There are limits, however, to the amount of Alberta student grant funding available. Please visit Alberta Student Aid's website for more information on the grants. Okay, let's get started. To apply for grants only, you will need to complete a full-time Alberta Student Aid loan application. To do so, you will need to go to the Alberta Student Aid website, studentaid.alberta.ca. Once you have navigated to the Alberta Student Aid website, you will need to either create an account if this is your first time applying for student aid funding, or you will need to log into your previously created account. First-time applicants will click on the Start Here button. Step-by-step instructions and resources are there to help you apply. If you are a returning user or applicant, you will need to log into your Alberta Student Aid account to manage your application. You will then need to complete the Alberta Student Aid application in full. It's really important you make sure the funding period you are applying for matches the dates of your post-secondary program. Please make sure you fill in all of the sections of the student loan application with accurate information. It is especially important to fill out the education costs for school term in the studies information section. Even if you don't want grant funding to cover the cost of your tuition, fees, or books, you will need to accurately record your actual tuition, fees, etc. in this section. You must fill out the education cost section accurately. If you do not fill out this section or do not put in accurate information, you may not receive grants. Your tuition and fees should automatically be populated on this page next to where it says full course load amount. Each white box that says requested amount will need to be filled in with your correct tuition and fees, etc. Do not write $1 or $0 in the white boxes. You need to report your accurate tuition and fees in this section. We cannot reiterate this enough. This is a common mistake applicants often make when they are completing their application for grants only. We would also like to draw attention to the additional information section of the application. This part of the application will ask you to report total income from your tax return. Student aid is looking for you to report the previous year's gross income. Depending upon your situation, your age, relationship status, etc., this could include your income, your spouse or partner's income, or if you are a dependent student, the income of your parents. After you have completed the whole student aid application, make sure you double check the application and that all of the sections are completed accurately. You can then click Submit Application or Start Submission Process at the top of the page. After you submit the application, you will be brought to a screen that asks for you to indicate the amount of assistance required. To apply for grant funding only, type $1 into that box that says total amount of assistance requested. This will allow you to specifically ask for grant funding only. To apply for grant funding only, you will type in $1 in the box that says total amount of assistance requested. Do not leave this page blank. Do not write on any other number. Writing $1 will indicate you want grant funding only. Some final thoughts to keep in mind. After you have entered $1, you will need to follow the instructions on the last few pages of the student funding application. We know you might be tempted to skip over this information, but please be sure you read all of the consent and declaration information at the end. You should receive a notice of assessment letter in your Alberta Student Aid inbox in 2 to 4 weeks after you submit your application. Be sure to check your student aid inbox regularly. Do not ignore notifications from this inbox. There will likely be documents you need to complete before you receive your grant funding, so please do watch the inbox for more information. Please also keep in mind some of the grants you receive might be sent to the post-secondary institution you attend to pay any outstanding tuition. The Canadian Student Grant for Students with Disabilities will always be sent directly to you, the student. Congratulations! You made it through our presentation. We hope this presentation served as a support for you to access grant funding with Alberta Student Aid. Our mission at MyLearningCoach is to ensure post-secondary students have full access to an equitable education. We provide educational services that empower students and support post-secondary students to reach their full academic aspirations. If you would like to learn more about the role we play in ensuring education is accessible for all, or to discover how we can support you in your own academic journey, please reach out via email at admin@mylearningcoach.ca, via our website, www.mylearningcoach.ca, or on social media at mylearningcoach.ca. From the entire team at MyLearningCoach, thank you for watching.